guys, I've got a big old book haul for you today. Let's see if I can hold all the books. I got them. So today's book haul, it has like a lot of like grouped books. I have a goal this year to try my hardest to not buy books from an author I haven't read a book from before. There will be some exceptions, like if it's a little free library book or a thrift store book, or if it's an author maybe that I've heard something amazing about and I get a good deal. But for the most part, I want to stick with authors I already read stuff from. So you'll notice kind of like some big author groupings here. The hardest part is always just like, where do I even start? Let's start with the books I'm most excited about, actually. I feel like actually that's not fair to the books. Can I say I'm the most excited about? I don't know. But I'm really excited about the covers of these books. Can you recognize what these are? These are the Tundra editions of L.M. Montgomery's books. I have a number of them already, but I wanted to like finish out my collection because I think they're not publishing these anymore, and I didn't want to be like halfway through a book series and then for them to not publish them anymore and I couldn't get my hands on them, because these are my favorite L.M. Montgomery editions. So to finish off the Emily series, I already have book 1. So then I've got Emily Climbs, which is book 2, and Emily's Quest, which is book 3. These follow Emily Starr, who is an orphan who goes to live with her, I think it's like 2 aunts and an uncle or something like that, relatives. And it's very similar to Anne in many ways, except that Emily is not as optimistic. She's a bit darker, and I quite enjoyed book 1, which I think I've read that one twice, but I've never read books 2 and 3, so I want to get to these ones. Then I think this next one is a standalone. This is Mistress Pat. I don't really know anything about it. When she was 20, nearly everyone thought Patricia was ought to be having beaux, except for herself. I have no idea. I just know that this one was available in this edition, so I grabbed it. And then I've heard really good things of Jane of Lantern Hill. I have had this one in a different edition before, but now it's upgraded. I also don't know anything about this, but I believe this one is also a standalone. And then the exciting ones is that I got the rest of the Anne of Green Gables series. So I already have books 1 and 2, and then I got Anne of the Island, Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne's House of Dreams, Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, that one's number 7, and Rilla of Ingleside. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to try to read like the first sentence of each book as I go here, but I'm not going to do it for the series. So I'm not going to do it for the Emily books, I'm not going to do it for the Anne books, but we'll go back to Jane and Pat. Apparently L.M. Montgomery really liked to have names in her titles. So Mistress Pat, the first sentence. Ooh, there's like a doggy-eared page. My brand new book. Mistress Pat, the first sentence is, there were hundreds of trees, big and little, on the Silver Bush farm, and every tree was a personal friend of Pat's. That just sounds like L.M. Montgomery's writing right off the bat. And then Jane of Lantern Hill, the first sentence, Gay Street, so Jane always thought, did not live up to its name. I want to keep reading because I'm like, well, why? But I'm going to stop there. Okay, so that was like one of my stacks. This is another series that I'm completing, and this is books 3 and 4 in the Wingfeather saga. Book 4 is quite a bit chunkier than the other ones. I love this series. I believe that today on Krista's channel, she is doing a middle grade recommendations video where she got a bunch of people to contribute, and this is the series I decided to recommend. I couldn't just like recommend a standalone, because how do you pick like your favorite middle grade book? So I cheated a bit. I went with a series, and I chose this one because not that many people seem to have read it. And yeah, so I'm excited to have book 3 and 4. They got printed with new covers last year, but we never even owned the old covers, so I'm excited about those. And I won't read the first sentence because I don't want to give anything away. Then my next few books I have gotten off of Book Outlet. I keep getting like free credits, so if you have never purchased from there before, if you use my link, which I can leave below, you get $10 off your $10 off your first order. Here we go, that makes sense. And I also get $10 in credits, so every time I have like $20 built up, I place an order. And yeah, I got some good ones, I think. I got Brandon Sanderson's Legion, which, other than seeing this on Book Outlet, there's one of my patrons on Patreon has said that this is like, I think, her favorite Sanderson. Other than that, I've never heard anything about it. So, holding too many books, what a problem. Yeah, this is, okay, wait a minute. The Many Lives of, is it Stephen or Stefan? Because I know people that have it spelt it this way and pronounce it differently. Whatever, this guy. It's the many lives of him. And the synopsis says, this guy, Stefan, is perfectly sane. It's his hallucinations who are mad. A genius of unrivaled aptitude, Stephen can learn any new skill in a matter of hours using hallucinatory people. He calls them aspects, to hold and manifest the information. Wherever he goes, Stefan, we'll just keep like switching it up, is joined by a team of imaginary experts. He uses them to solve problems for a price. Really, that didn't even tell me anything, and I don't want to read the rest of it. I just know that it's Sanderson, and I want to try to read all of his books. So the first sentence is, I feel like this is a guy that can usually draw me in, but I don't know if it's like right from the very first sentence. Oh, preface. Do I start with a preface? No, I'm gonna go to the first chapter. Oh, apparently the preface is just his talk. Right, I always get preface and prologue all mixed up. Anyway, number 1. My name is Stefan Leeds, and I am perfectly sane. Okay, if only I knew how to actually pronounce his name. Okay, one I've actually shown multiple times on my channel, but like never officially hauled, and I feel like it deserves to be hauled, is Father Brown, The Essential Tales. I have tried to watch the Father Brown show, did not like it, but every time I ask for more mystery recommendations that are like Sherlock-esque, guaranteed Father Brown is recommended. So this is one of my books that I want to read this year. It's just a collection, I think it's like 20-ish short stories. Yeah, like 15 maybe. So let's read the very first story. So Father Brown is a clergyman. I don't know the exact, he's a Roman Catholic priest, and murders and I guess mysteries, probably murders, keep happening around him. So the first story is called The Blue Cross, and the first sentence says, between the silver ribbon of morning and the green glittering ribbon of sea, the boat touched Harwich and let loose a swarm of folk like flies, among whom the man we must follow was by no means conspicuous, nor wished to be. One thing I've learned is I like shorter, punchier first sentences. This is what this has taught me over the last few hauls. That was quite wordy and didn't draw me in. Not that like I could be drawn in really quickly otherwise, but the first sentence didn't do it. Ooh, and then I'm excited about these next two. These are nonfiction. This one is Keep Showing Up by Karen Eman. Oh, this is so funny too. Jared had no idea that I got this book, but we were just having a conversation the other day about how, you know, people like actually following through what they say they're gonna do is not very common in our culture anymore, and we want to be those people that can be depended on to show up. And I was like, hey, look at this book that I just got. So it says, How to Stay Crazy in Love When Your Love Drives You Crazy. So I have read another one of Karen Eman's books, Listen, Love, Repeat, I think, and that one was really good. It was about how to be a good friend and how to pay attention to your friends and then like check in on them and stuff. This one is, What if the marriage you've always wanted could be the one you already have? Oh, is this a marriage book? I had no idea. Whether you and your spouse disagree about finances, this is going to help you play to each other's strengths as you work on your own weaknesses. Become a faithful forgiver who also forgets. Okay, I didn't realize this was a marriage book. Okay, I don't know if I would have bought it, if I would have known. Like, maybe, because I do like her other writing, but that's different than what I thought. Maybe I should have guessed from the hearts. I just thought this was like friendship, keep showing up in friendship, but I guess not. Oh, right, and first sentence, almost forgot. It's always tricky with nonfiction. Chapter 1 is called, there's like this huge important note beforehand. We won't even read the important note. Where does a wife go to resign? First sentence is, why is this so hard? Interesting. My marriage is not something that I struggle with. This should be a parenting book and this would be more up my alley, but it'll still be a good thing to read because I think it's always good to, you know, still make an effort in your marriage. Okay, and And then I've got The Imperfect Disciple. I actually started listening to this on audio almost a year ago now, and I think the audiobook had to go back and I never finished it, but the subtitle is Grace for People Who Can't Get Their Act Together. And oh, does this go through? I don't remember because it's been like a year. Yeah, so I think it's just, it says, too many discipleship books are written for people, perfect people who know all the right Sunday school answers. This book is for the rest of us, people who screw up, people who are weary, people who are wondering if it's safe to say what they're really thinking. He's got incisive wit, warm humor, and moving stories. And wit and humor are like great buzzwords for me. So yeah, and I was really enjoying this book, and Jared actually read it and really liked it. But I think that's when we had a 6-month-old again. Yeah, so the first chapter is called Sin and the Art of Soul Maintenance. My gospel is a little sweaty and ragged around the edges. That's chapter 1. First sentence. Next set of books, I got a bunch of Agatha Christie. Every time that I see any on Book Outlet that I have not, I don't have in my collection already, I just buy it. I don't care if I like it or not. I want to own all the Agatha Christie's. There's been, I think, 2 of hers that I've given 2 stars or like not great ratings to, and those are still on my shelf because I'm just collecting all her books. And I think I might have actually even, I have 2 more orders coming from Book Outlet. There might be another Agatha Christie or 2. So let's start with the first one. The Secret of Chimneys. This one is not a specific detective. It doesn't have the detective name on the side, but this is one of apparently Agatha Christie's personal favorites. Oh, so there's a list of her favorites back here. And these are some of my favorites too. Oh, except that one. She has Endless Night as one of her favorites. That was not one of my favorites, but The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Moving Finger, Murder on the Orient Express, and then there were none. A Murder is Announced. So I've got like the same kind of taste as her. So what is this one about? Little did Anthony Cade suspect that an errand for a friend would place him at the center of a deadly conspiracy. Drawn into a web of intrigue, he begins to realize that the simple favor has placed him in serious danger. Yeah. I really don't care what it's about. I'm just going to read it anyway. Oh, chapter 1. The first sentence is, Gentleman Joe! And then there were none. Because it wasn't until I was doing my favorite books, Agatha Christie books, that I realized I don't even own a copy of this. Well, I kind of knew that, but there's always been like the movie copy, and I don't want the movie cover because it's not as nice. Yeah, Murder on the Orient Express. And then there were none. This takes place on an island where there's like 10 people, and then they just like slowly get picked off one by one, and you gotta figure out who's murdering the people. The first sentence is, in the corner of a first-class smoking carriage, Mr. Justice Wargrave, lately retired from the bench, puffed at a cigar and ran an interested eye through the political news in the Times. Yeah, see, I really don't like the long first sentences. But also, like, Gentleman Joe didn't really get me either. Then we've got The Murder at the Vicarage. I should say this one, too, was just one of her favorites. It doesn't have a specific detective. And this one is a Miss Marple one, which those are usually my favorites. The Murder at the Vicarage is, anyone who murdered Colonel Prothero, declared the parson, brandishing a carving knife above a joint of roast beef, would be doing the world at large a favor. It was a careless remark for a man of the cloth, and one which was to come back and haunt the clergyman just a few hours later, when the colonel is found shot dead in the clergyman's study. I like these kind of setups. That sounds interesting to me. It is difficult to know quite where to begin this story, but I have fixed my choice on a certain Wednesday at luncheon at the vicarage. I also quite like the beginning of that paragraph, the first sentence. That one might have to like get bumped up to one that I read soon. Then I have Death on the Nile. I do believe I read this one. So when I did my favorite Agatha Christie books, I went on Goodreads and counted how many I had read, and I said 14 because that's what Goodreads said, but I don't think, a couple years ago I wasn't putting in all the books that I read. So I'm pretty sure this one is not on the list, but I think I've read it. Oh, maybe I haven't, but I do think that I had read more than what the number was. So this one is a pro mystery. The tranquility of a cruise along the Nile was shattered by the discovery that Lynette Ridgway had been shot through the head. She was young, stylish, and beautiful, a girl who had everything until she lost her life. Yeah, now I have to like figure out if I've actually read this one. Lynette Ridgway. So like 2 of the books so far just kind of like were people yelling someone's name. And then the last Agatha Christie is The Pale Horse, which is not by a particular detective and also not even one of her favorites. So this one's kind of like down on the list. When an elderly priest is murdered, the killer searches the victim so roughly that his already ragged cassock is torn in the process. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna look it up. What was the killer looking for, and what had a dying woman confided to the priest on her deathbed only hours earlier? Ooh. Chapter 1 is from Mark Easterbrook's narrative. The espresso machine behind my shoulder hissed like an angry snake. What is a cassock? We're gonna look this up. A full-length garment. So it's like the robe. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that's what it's called. Okay, then I've got one book here that is like just on its own. The Phantom Tollbooth. This is one that I've never read, and I found it in a little free library, so I figured I should grab it so that eventually I will read it. I have no idea what this book's even about. For Milo, everything's a bore. When a tollbooth mysteriously appears in his room, he drives through only because he's got nothing better to do. Wow, okay, I didn't even know that. Ooh, it's got a cool little map. Where's chapter 1? Milo. There was once a boy named Milo who didn't know what to do with himself. Not just sometimes, but always. So I'm assuming this is middle grade. Looks like it's for ages 8 to 12. And then I went thrifting this morning and got some kids' books. So I want to do a reading vlog in the future where I read some of my childhood favorite books. But then I realized I don't remember what I liked as a child. So I went to the thrift store like hoping that I would recognize some things. Because all I remember is the Babysitter's Club. And maybe like a little bit of Sweet Valley. Also, those ones are really hard to find at thrift stores. I don't know why. So I couldn't even find those. But I would love if you guys would let me know like what were your childhood favorite books, especially if you're like around my age. Maybe something will trigger. I didn't read any classics, like any good literature at my age. It was all just babysitter-esque type stuff. But I found this Paschetti and Meatballs. This is apparently the family circus. These are pretty much just like little comics. And I totally remember reading books of this. So that was kind of cool. Maybe we should just like read the first comic together. This is Butter and this is Marjorie. So these were published in the late 70s, early 80s. Then a couple days ago, a week or 2 ago, I was asking you guys for middle grade mystery suggestions for my daughter on my community tab here on YouTube, and someone mentioned the Eric Wilson books, and I totally remember these covers. I don't 100% remember if I read them, but they are like Canadian mystery stories and like super tiny. So this one's Vancouver Nightmare. And yeah, and I found this one, so I'm like, I'm gonna grab it. The first sentence is, the coffin was open, the air black and musty all around. Ooh, that sounds good. And it has like a bit of a map. So that one looks fun. Then I don't think I actually read this book, but like the look of this book is what there was in my childhood. This is Camp Sunnyside Friends. It's like all these like illustrated but like fairly realistic illustrations of people. And someone's always like offended by something. This is Megan's ghost. Megan is terrified of meeting a ghost, but she has no choice. Let's see what this sentence is about. I just thought this might be an interesting one to like see if this is the kind of book I was reading. The first sentence is, Megan, stop dawdling and come eat your breakfast. I don't really have high hopes for that one, let's be honest. Another reading vlog I want to do eventually is like books that I feel like I should have maybe read as a kid or as a teenager. And this is one that I've heard a lot about, bunicula. Is that even how to pronounce it? It looks like an ordinary bunny, but Harold was a dog by profession, so his judgment wasn't reliable. You see the bunny? So, A Rabbit Tale of Mystery. This is one that was written when? 79. So, yeah, I think a lot of people were reading this in school and I wasn't. I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. So so I thought I would grab that one. All these books that I got at the thrift store today, I think I paid $2.75 for them in total. And then I got a couple books for my son. I got Flat Stanley. I've never read any of these. We've never read any of these. And I thought that would be interesting. We just started an Africa unit in our homeschool. We're doing the Gather Round curriculum, and they recommended 2 Flat Stanley African books. There's an Egypt one and something else. But then I saw this one and I was like, well, we'll give it a try. And this one's gonna come up eventually in something else. This is Sideways Stories from Wayside School. My son has been listening to these and loving them lately. I guess I forgot the sentences again. Flat Stanley. Why do I do the sentence thing? I don't know. It's kind of fun, but I always forget. Breakfast was ready. Apparently, books like to start with breakfast. Wayside School. Mrs. Gorf had a long tongue and pointed ears. Okay. Then I got, ooh, this one I'm excited about. Pippi Goes on Board. So Ephraim loves Pippi, but we currently just have the original book, like Pippi Longstocking, so I thought this one would be fun. First sentence. If a stranger should come to a certain little Swedish town and should happen one day to find himself at a certain spot on the edge of it, he would see Villa Veluca. That's the first sentence. And the last book is A Light in the Attic. This is another book that a lot of people like grew up reading. I didn't. We like to read these poems in our homeschool though. We do like a poetry tea time kind of once a week-ish. And we actually own a copy of this, but it's like bruised and battered because I bought it used. And now I bought this one used for 25 cents and it's in perfect condition. So let's read the first poem together. A Light in the Attic. There's a light on in the attic. Though the house is dark and shuttered, I can see a flickering flutter, and I know what it's about. There's a light on in the attic. I can see it from the outside, and I know you're on the inside, looking out. Okay, so that is all for this book haul. Like I said, I have 2 more book orders coming. I just can never seem to like do a haul when I don't have a bunch of books in the mail, so there'll be another one soon. Yeah, so give me some childhood recommendation books, and let me know what you've been finding lately at thrift stores and other bookstores. I always love hearing the books that you guys are picking up. Thanks for watching, guys.